and welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph, and in this video we're gonna be reading some horror romance. I actually don't know how much of it is gonna lean towards horror, how much is romance. The very first book that I have to read in the vlog is Dowry of Blood. So this was originally self-published and it's about Dracula's first bride. That's all I know about it. I read the content warnings and it just sounds like my kind of book, and I don't really know what that says about me. I don't want to interrogate it too much, but Dowry of Blood. And then tomorrow or the day after is a book that I have been really excited about reading, and it is called Your Shadow Half Remains. So this is a shorter novella. I think it's like 120 pages or something like that. I really don't know a whole lot about it, but it sounds really interesting and that cover just screws with my mind. So I am gonna go take myself on a little date and read a book on a cafe and start with Dowry of Blood. I'm really enjoying this book. Okay, so I'm like halfway through part one. I'm around, what is this, 20% through? So this book is written from Constanta's point of view. That's the first bride. And she is kind of speaking directly to you, the reader, and it's actually like directly to Dracula, her husband, because it's really clear in the first like 2 pages that she seems to have betrayed him, or something has happened where she has turned against him in her process of explaining why she made the decisions that she did, which we don't know which are yet. She is sort of recounting their entire relationship history together. And it's so beautifully written. Like the prose, this woman, she is like, there's a perfect amount of layered emotions that are often conflicting and like melodrama, and the prose is just beautiful. So she tells her husband in the first few pages, "I will render you as you really were, neither cast in pristine stained glass nor unholy fire." Or how about, "This is my last love letter to you, though some would call it a confession. I suppose both are sort of a gentle violence, putting down in ink what scorches the air when spoken aloud." I don't think I have ever used the highlight function in any book that I've read on an e-reader, and I just have highlighted so much of this book already. I'm so enjoying it, and I'm so intrigued by what is happening. So Dracula finds Constanta in the very beginning of their relationship, covered in blood, dying on the ground, and he comes and like transforms her into a vampire, and it's sort of describing the way that she feels really loved, and like, but at the same time, because she's telling it from the future, she also has a bit of perspective on how he was also kind of molding her and shaping her, and how he is also kind of controlling, and how the relationship was really not healthy and unbalanced in terms of power dynamics. So I am loving it. I don't think I'm going to be capable of reading or doing anything else today. I am so intrigued, and I'm already very sad that this book is only like 240 pages, because I know that I'm going to just be left like dying for more. So I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to do my best to make myself stop and check in with you again at least one more time before I finish it. But yeah, very much enjoying this. This is such a good book. So I am 75% of the way into reading Dowry of Blood, and I had to stop because I'm cooking dinner. Today on the menu we have some kind of Peruvian soup. I'm cooking, oh, that's really high. I'm cooking the potatoes and the chicken right now, and then we're gonna throw in some chili stuff and some coriander stuff, and hopefully that will result in it being edible. But as far as A Dowry of Blood is concerned, I'm still really enjoying it. I think that it's, again, still like beautifully written, very interesting premise, but I can definitely appreciate why we are just under a 300-page book, because it's really a simple, not simple, it's not a huge epic plot. We're following, so our main character, Constana, I find her name very difficult, and like her sort of disillusionment with her husband and her maker, as they're kind of just moving around the world. Like where they're living, it's not really important, are slowly building their family up in size, like creating new vampires. He is kind of becoming more and more abusive towards them, and so like secrets are coming out, there's a lot of mistrust, and it's really just about the disintegration of their relationship and the experience of being a vampire and like stuck forever in this kind of really isolating situation where you both love a person so much, they're also quite shitty. So I'm enjoying it a lot. I don't know if it's going to necessarily be a favorite book like I was initially thinking, but I am having a really good time. So I think I'm going to finish it tonight, and I will probably check in with you in the morning once I get my teeth into the next book. Okay, hi. I have finished Dowry of Blood and I really enjoyed it. I realized that in my last check-in, I should have probably mentioned that this is also kind of a poly relationship setup, because although all of their relationships are kind of focused on their maker, this like Dracula character, who also is never named, but I'll get back to that in a moment. And the story of the book is really focusing on the main narrator and this Dracula guy. They're all kind of involved with each other somehow. But yeah, so I don't think that this is really a retelling of Dracula. It might be kind of inspired by him, but it's definitely not having a whole lot of anything in common, which I did not know. But I think I kind of enjoyed this a little bit more. So the book starts in the Middle Ages kind of time period, and we go all the way up to more or less present day. It has very overt gothic environment to it, and she does a very good job of showing the inside of this Constanta's mind. The atmosphere in this is created really through the emotions that are being described, which I would not really mind having a little bit more description of the actual locations, because it's kind of like, oh, we were in Venice, and you hear that the main character loves Venice, but you don't really hear anything about what her experience with Venice is like, what she really enjoyed about it, or she'll tell you, but that part isn't really shown. You don't get a whole lot of that. It's really her internal narrative. But in that narrative voice, I also really found it interesting because I think that it aged a little bit, you know, starting from the Middle Ages. She's really happy, she's in love, and then she becomes slowly and slowly more jaded, and people begin to refer to her as like almost a mother figure. I also read, there's a short story that was like at the back of this book that I didn't know about. That one is from the perspective of one of the other romantic partners in this little family that they created. Yeah, I didn't really have any particularly strong feelings about that. I just kind of thought it was fine, but not really necessary. So I don't know, that feels like kind of a rambly way to summarize how I felt about Dowry of Blood, but like I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautifully written. It is perfect if you know exactly what you're getting into and what you're getting. So a very dramatic tale with a lot of blood drinking, a small bit of smut or steam or whatever, but it's certainly not erotica, like an exploration of betrayal and abusive relationships and all of that. And I've also started reading Your Shadow Half Remains. Now, this book is about 170 pages or so, and I am approximately halfway through, so it's very short. I'll probably finish it today. And I've got to say, it's going to be a very tough job to follow up A Dowry of Blood, because that one just started off so strong for me. I don't know how, like nothing is going to inspire that, because that just hit me at the right time in the right moment. Man, I really enjoyed it. But Your Shadow Half Remains is kind of a apocalyptic, like kind of a dystopian pandemic story. So we're following our main girl Riley several years into this pandemic thing, and we don't get a ton of details about how it came about or the world. It's just there has been this thing that's happening. I don't know, it's not like a biological disease or anything like that. But what happens is when people make eye contact, it kind of drives them insane, and they have to kill each other in like a very violent and urgent way, and often commit suicide after that. Okay, I think that's like kind of standard stuff. And so Riley has been living on her own for quite a while, and she finally gets a neighbor. They have been kind of meeting up and spending time together, careful not to look each other in the eye. And they have like shades or shutters or some kind of like glasses. Basically, they have masks to kind of prevent each other from like looking into one another's eyes. I don't know, I'm enjoying it. It's definitely intriguing. I think like there's kind of this attachment that is developing between the two neighbors, right? Because the premise kind of leads you to believe that Riley is going to sort of lose a sense of grip on reality, or something kind of funky is going to happen with her point of view. She's going to become more and more unreliable, and she's really struggling with not wanting to make eye contact with this person to like really have a solid connection with them. And so that seems like I'm just on the edge of going into that part of the story. So I'm definitely hoping that we're going to get either a little bit of a twist with that. This is compared to Bird Box and The Last of Us. So I've watched The Last of Us, I enjoyed that, but I've never seen Bird Box. But yeah, I'm hoping, because I feel like this kind of pandemic thing where people go crazy and then they start killing each other, and I'm hoping there's going to be a bit of a twist on it. Like there will be something unexpected or something more interesting, because Riley as a character and her neighbor person as a character, they're not terribly unique people, but I feel like that is going to probably change as she becomes more unreliable and unstable. Yeah, so I'm just kind of waiting on that. Yeah, that's kind of all I've got to really say about that right now, but I will let you know. I have finished Your Shadow Half Remains. My very first piece of advice to anyone who wants to read this book is do not read this while you're eating lunch. It does get a little bit gory and very just visceral towards the end, and yeah, that does not go well with stew, my friends. So definitely it is a bit of isolation horror. As Riley gets to know Ellis a little bit more, we see how she not only becomes more unstable, but how she has already been becoming more unstable. Like contrasting her with another human and seeing her interact with other people begins to illustrate how unreliable she actually might be. And that's something I think that this author actually does really well, and I really appreciate about this book. But I did have some challenges with it. And partly, I think just because I don't think this book was my thing. I don't know. It felt a lot slower as well than I was really expecting, especially with the comp titles. I just thought that it would be a little bit more fast-paced. There would be more adventure. This is a lot more contemplative. You are really immersed in Riley's internal world, getting an understanding of what it has been like for her to be living alone for so long, and then to suddenly have this other person and how that affects her. So yeah, I mean, it's 170 or something pages. It's pretty well written. I don't really have any significant complaints there. I think there are some pacing challenges. It's just a slower book, and I didn't know that, but it was a fine read. Like my kind of final feeling or impression about it is like, okay, you know, it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible. There's definitely a lot of people who would be interested in it. So if that kind of story appeals to you, if that's the kind of horror that you enjoy, definitely check this out. I think there are some really interesting aspects and twists. And the author's writing style just kept it so I couldn't completely settle on a conclusion of like what reality really was, what the actual true threat was in this story. So yeah, that's Your Shadow Half Remains. Definitely check it out if it sounds interesting to you. And I think that brings me to the conclusion of this vlog. Both Dowry of Blood and Your Shadow Half Remains are quite short in comparison to, you know, what I've been reading lately, and I kind of enjoyed that. And I'm really enjoying exploring more books that have like a romantic element to it as well as horror. I like a dark story, but I'm not necessarily looking for dark romance, if you know what I mean. So I'm definitely on the lookout for more of those. I have heard some really good things about Darcy Coates, and I think I might go and pick one of those up in the near future. But if you have any suggestions for me, do let me know. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out and making it to this point in the video, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.